Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hoof Podcast, late edition, Thursday Night Football edition.
Yeah, right.
Another beautiful Thursday, headed into Week 5 of the NFL. Starting to figure out who these teams are. What's really exciting about this week? Lots of divisional matchups, right?
Oh yeah,
Tons.
Games that matter. It's leverage.
Yes. Yeah. So rolling in, and going to be a good weekend. Got plans? Any plans? I see you're out of town.
I am. I'm flying back home tomorrow, so that's good. I'm just live from my hotel room, but so I get to go back tomorrow and watch football Sunday in my normal situation of Sunday 1:00 in the man cave with pizza and people who want to come over. So excited to get back to some normalcy there, at least, versus all these primetime games.
Yes, I think it's the Bills have a 1:00 game, one of only 5 all season.
Yeah. Crazy to think. But that's
nuts.
The price of being a good team, I guess, a perennial good team now.
Right. You got to wait all day to watch football. Right. Fine with me. Get the red zone on,
That's right.
I like red zone. No commercials. Kind of nice. Get your fantasy teams rolling.
Yeah, I like watching it. In the last couple Sundays, I've enjoyed stress-free football where you're just watching for the stats and for me, the bets, obviously, and, that kind of thing. So it's fun when it's not fun having to wait for your team to play, but it's fun when you're already just, going into it like no skin off your back. And in our case, the outcomes have been beneficial in terms of the division or the league and all that. So, by the way, can't get too far into this without addressing the most important matter at hand, Eric, where I screamed at you last week about the Jets being the Jets, and you didn't think the Jets were the Jets. You thought the Jets were this mythical good team that everybody's painted them out to be. And I predicted that they would lose to the Broncos, and they did. Not only did they lose to the Broncos, they scored 9 points against the Broncos.
Well, I think the Jets are like, okay, let's say Cleveland, the Chargers, and even the Ravens so far this year. They are a good team, but they just can't put it all together. And I don't know what that is, right? It seems like Baltimore's figuring it out. They stomped Buffalo.
I was just about to say,
but, I mean,
Baltimore has
the Chargers do this every year. Cleveland does this every year. Jets are no different, but I mean, still, you look at the roster, you look at who they have, it should work. You know what I mean? And it's just not. And there's a lot of season left. I think, I still think the Jets are going to make the playoffs.
What?
I do.
How?
Wild card. I mean, because the Miami's really falling off.
Devontae Adams, is that what you're saying? And
I feel like that last spot in the wild card, that 7 seed, I really thought Miami was in on that, and it looks like they're falling off.
Not looking like it's going to be Miami.
I think the Jets.
That's
at this point in the season, I think a lot of things will change. But
look at Lance is in the chat saying, "Are you nuts? The Jets? No way."
Yeah, I mean, who else you got though? I mean, you think Miami's going to get in? You think New England's going to get in? We know the AFC North's going to beat themselves up.
Right, that's going to be the tough part.
We talked about
the teams from the North.
Right, we talked about the AFC South and if Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. That's maybe take a step, but right now they're both leading the league in interceptions. I mean, it's not looking great.
I still think that those teams step up, especially either the North is going to have better record. I don't know if the Jets win more than 8 or 9 games, and that's exactly where I had them preseason, which is why I had never had them in the playoffs. So, although that Miami spot I think is open now, right? Because with the injuries and everything that they're going through right now, that's going to be very tough for them to overcome and get that last playoff spot.
Right.
So
you got to think this is it for the Jets, right? Like it's this year, be competitive or bust.
Yeah.
Because your quarterback's 40, 41 years old.
They're busted.
I don't think there's another year. I don't think there's another year with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe I'm wrong, but I
Likely
mean,
not.
and then what do? They're going to win enough games where they can't get a top quarterback in the draft. Even if they did, we've seen that story a few times. I bet they'd be hesitant to take a quarterback in the draft. So then, you're looking around. I mean, you got to fill that spot. So I mean, that can take some time. So really, for me, it feels like this is it for the Jets. You got to. It's win or blow it up again. You know what I mean?
It's been that way since the preseason, dude, and they still haven't shown up 4 games in. So
Right.
I don't know what you're expecting out of them. This is who they are. And now they're going to this week. They play Minnesota. I mean, come on, they're not going to win that game. So
Minnesota's hot right now, no doubt.
yeah, hottest team in the league.
All right, 7-0 Atlanta Falcons. Let's get into the game here. Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Tampa Bay was plus 2.5 at Atlanta. Atlanta is up 7.
I picked Atlanta for this game. The Falcons are my NFC championship. So you got to, in order to get that far, you got to win games like this. Tampa's been inconsistent. They've shown good. They've shown real bad. So I just think that, this game being in Atlanta is a big advantage for them. And I do expect them to win by about a touchdown. So the fact that they were only minus 2.5 made this a good bet for me. But yeah, I fully expect them to be able to run and pass and score points. The Bucs might get a good play here and there, put some points on the board. Certainly the Falcons defense hasn't been shutting people out, and the Bucs can score, but ultimately the Falcons are the better team in my mind, and they should win this game.
Correction, it is 7-7 now. Bucs just scored.
There you go.
I like this Bucs team. I mean, last year they couldn't run the ball worth a damn, right? But I think everything else was pretty good. Quarterback plays average, right? Seems like they're off to a hot start this year, and I think they do have some sort of a running game. Not going to say it's top 50% in the league, but they're around the middle of the pack, which is an improvement from last year. So I feel like Atlanta's kind of stumbling through games, and then they kind of put themselves in a position to win at the end. They have 2 game-winning drives this year in only 4 games, so that's always a threat. But I like this Bucs team. I think they're the receiving core is obviously really good, and Baker's looking pretty sharp so far. So I'm going to pick the Bucs tonight.
All right. You're going against me again. Last week I'm mad at TallySite because this pick I did get in TallySite this week, but last week something funky was going on with TallySite and my picks weren't able to be submitted. And then I thought they did on Sunday before the game started. It gave me the notification, and then I come back to look at my results knowing that I did pretty well. And sure enough, nothing is there. So luckily, though, we did them on our show live. So I do have that as results. I think I only had 3 losses last week. So I was like,
that's pretty good.
It is 13-3, something like that. How many teams in the NFL?
No big deal. 13-3. No big deal.
So a great week.
Lance chiming in again. Bills only team from the East
to make the playoffs.
Score up on the Jets here. Okay, Jets can't even score a touchdown.
I know, dude, against the Broncos defense.
It's raining, It was rain.
The heralded amazing Broncos defense.
But just to touch on this one last time, look around. I just don't see another team that's going to get that spot.
Yeah, that's
Jacksonville.
It's going to be one of those teams
Broncos,
fighting. You're talking about inferior teams fighting for maybe your Chargers. Your Chargers might make the playoff.
No, I'm done. No, they're not my Chargers anymore. We broke up last year. The backstory, I picked them to make the playoffs like 3 years in a row.
And they
did make the playoffs last year. But again, they don't, once they get there, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Right? They let you down. 2 years prior, they let me down, and they can't beat Kansas City. That's set in stone now. So yeah, Chargers going to Charger. All right, so speaking of Jets at Vikings, New York Jets plus 2.5 at Minnesota.
Good,
Sam Darnold, lead leader in quarterback rating and passing touchdowns. I mean, did anybody predict that?
Playing on fire. It's crazy. I mean, the reason he leads in those stats is because they've needed to stay in games by passing, and they've given up a lot of points too. But they have been dominant on offense for sure, and it's fun to watch and see. And Sam Darnold becoming this kind of quarterback was certainly not expected by many. I mean, we knew that his offensive weapons there were going to make him look good, right? There's no question about that. When you're throwing to those guys, you're going to look good. You have the best receiver in the league in Jefferson. You've got Addison. You've got a running game there now. It's it's a balanced offensive attack that's always good for any quarterback. But Darnold has really been able to shine with those weapons, and it's making the Jets look terrible. And now he gets to play them. Granted, this game is in London, which is always crazy, right? It's going to crazy. Anything can happen there. Both teams are jet lagged and all that. But I still think you talk about momentum. These are the highest and the lowest momentum teams in the league right now, right? If you talk about, without a doubt, Minnesota is the hottest team in the league, most unexpected to be where they are. And the Jets, between winning a game and then not, still having questions after the win, and then losing a game terribly against an inferior opponent. And now you're going to London with all these questions, and your leader of the team is, not a leader at all in my mind. So you could not be in two more different scenarios momentum wise. That's what's going to make this fun to watch, because I hope Minnesota beats the living crap out of the Jets on that neutral field.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Jets are going to have a hard time to match Minnesota's intensity. Minnesota's been hot early. Justin Jefferson and Sam Darnold have been on the same page. I think that's clear and obvious at this point. And, Sam's taking care of the football, which is new. That's new, right? And I'm really curious to see, can this last all season, right? We've seen flashes from Sam Darnold before, Correct. But I don't think we've seen anything consistent like we have in the first 4 games of this year. So could this be the Sam Darnold revenge game? Going back to play the Jets, beat them by 20. I mean, that could be a fun headline. So, yeah, I would take Minnesota in this one as well.
Absolutely. Expect them to win by much more than a field goal. So take Minnesota minus 2.5.
Right. Jets still make the playoffs. All right. Ravens at the Bengals. Baltimore minus 2.5 at Cincinnati. What do you think? Baltimore, I mean, obviously looked great last week.
Yeah.
But as we talked about, there was times where the Bills could have got back in the game, right? It just Bills kind of beat themselves in those scenarios. Felt like Baltimore could have ran the ball all day on the Bills, but they still got away from that, tried to pass, and ended up getting a couple 3-and-outs. Do you think Cincinnati makes those same mistakes, I guess?
I think Cincinnati is building momentum in this area, and this is one of those games that matters to Cincinnati, right? Everybody counts them out for the first 2 weeks, and now we're talking, these are the grinded out games that you need to win. You're facing a divisional opponent at home. I think that the Bengals are going to win this game, and that's why. I mean, they always face each other tough. You always expect these matchups to be tight. But Baltimore, again, like you said, they've tried to lose games. And I think the Bengals are the type of team that's going to take advantage of that. The Bengals have not hit their stride yet at all. They won last week, but it was, not as pretty as they'd like it to be. And I think that this is the first week they make a statement and say, hey, this is our divisional opponent. We're going to beat them on our home turf and look like the team that everybody knows we can be, with a very good offense and a balanced defense. And that'll be enough to hold out the Ravens. They're better suited to play the Ravens than the Bills were, unfortunately. And obviously, as a divisional opponent, they know that team very well. So, and it goes both ways. But I give the advantage to Cincinnati here. The Ravens are going to score points, but it's not going to be enough to beat the Bengals at home. It's going to be a fun game to watch, though. Yeah. This is definitely one that I want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, this is a game that can go either way. I think we both agree on that. But the Bengals, their backs are against the wall, right? And this seems to be the story for them every single year. They start off really slow, whether that's 0-3 or 1-4. Right now they're 1-3. I mean, it just seems like this is what they do, right? Then they get hot, and then they try to carry that momentum into the playoffs. Bengals are yet to win at home. This is in Cincinnati. But I just think the Ravens are just more physical, right? This Cincinnati team, they're not the same running game they used to be, right? And I think that play action is, you almost need, Joe Burrow needs that to be to open up opportunities. I think Baltimore will play the pass game, and I think the Bengals will struggle, and I'll take the Ravens to win.
Not a big Zach Moss, Chase Brown.
I mean, yeah, they've shown flashes, but it's just feels different. It's just not as flashy as it used to be.
Certainly, you don't have that back that you can rely on to carry it 20 times a game for sure.
Right.
And that is different for them. You're right. And maybe that's peace, but I'm thinking this is the week they put it together. Another one we disagreed on.
Like
I
you
like
said,
it.
backs against the wall, so I could see it either way, but I would take Baltimore. All right, AFC South. It would work. I'm clicking it. Okay, well, it's the Colts at the Jaguars. If I can get my thing to show here.
There it goes.
There we go. Okay.
Now we've got it.
Colts at Jaguars, Indianapolis +3 at Jacksonville. What are we thinking here? I mean, Anthony Richardson tied for leading the league in interceptions. Trevor Lawrence been below average this year. I think we're putting him in the below average category.
Yeah.
Jacksonville's just been disappointing for a number of years. And I think
Yeah, they showed signs of life.
0-8, 0-9 losing streak going back to last year. Again, what pops off for me in this game is Jonathan Taylor is going to get his yards.
Yes. Yeah, I do think
of that.
So for me, I'm taking Indy with the points. It's going to be a tight game. I really want to pick Jacksonville to win the game, but Indy with the points. But it's I'm not putting a lot of money on it. Let's put it that way, because I do feel like this could go either way. I like Indy with the points just based on the fact that I think the game's going to be close. And if you forced me, I'd say the Jags are the better team. They should win. But am I confident that's going to happen? Definitely not.
Okay, so you're going Colts?
Colts with the points, yes.
Colts with the points.
And Jags to win.
Gotcha. I'm taking Colts. All right, +3. I like that. I'll take Colts. All right, Dolphins at the Patriots. Miami +1 at New England. Miami's sitting at 1-3. Speaking about, talking about having the back up against the wall. I think Miami's absolutely in that position. New England, you expect that a little bit. Okay, you're going from a legendary coach to, new coach, going to do things different, culture change. Mike McDaniel had the flashy year last year, and it feels like, that's all falling apart, right? I think people are losing faith there is what it feels like. I know it's early in the season. But again, they have not scored a lot of points. Miami's been struggling big time on offense. Yes,
and they can't seem to get the quarterback situation situated with Tua on the bench. But to me, the answer is run the ball more, right? They should have Mostert coming back from injury, which I think will really help them just change of pace. You have Mostert and you've got A-Chain, and I think that balanced attack works a little better. They're not going to be able to – they have to come to terms with the fact that the passing game is secondary now. Even though you have two of the best weapons in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle that any quarterback could ask for, you're not going to pass the ball more than you're going to run it. And you need to control the ball and control the clock as much as you can, especially against an inferior, still in my mind, New England team who is, kind of turning into who we thought they were now after a big win in week 1. It's more of, they lost to the Jets. Okay, we know the Jets aren't a good team. So Miami, I think, even though they're, like you said, not in a good mental state because of the injuries and everything they're dealing with right now, and is this going to blow this team up to rebuild mode or whatever it is, I still like Miami to win this game because New England just isn't good enough to overcome. And Miami's defense, we knew that was going to be their weakness in general this season. But again, New England's offense, they'll score points in this game, but I don't expect them. I'm definitely betting the under for this game.
Right.
I take Miami with the point, but Miami to win. Obviously, that's pretty much a pick 'em.
Yeah, that's interesting because when does Drake May see the field? This is a home game for the Patriots. Yeah. I feel like, look, you're 1-3. It's time, right? He showed some flashes. Like, there's a lot to work on there, but I mean, this guy, he has some talent now. So if it's me, this is a good game for him to come in, and that definitely changes my opinion. But I think New England wins this at home. I just think Miami cannot generate any offense. You say run the ball, but they're not physical enough to rely on that. The threat of the pass is what opens up the run for Miami, and they don't have that anymore.
True.
It's like the whole thing's collapsing. So Wildcat Tyreek Hill, I think you have a better chance every single play.
That's pretty much what they've been doing.
Yeah.
I think he's had 30 yards rushing in the last 2 games.
Right. But I trust the Patriots defense. I think they can win this game 3-0.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. High scoring affair, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. Yeah,
3-0.
That's what it feels like. All right. Game of the week. Buffalo Bills going down to Houston. Buffalo -1 at Houston. But really, it's the Stephon Diggs versus Josh Allen game. We talked about this a lot in the offseason. I don't think it's as big a deal as the media makes it out to be. However, it's in the back of their mind. They're still buddies. I don't think there's any animosity or anything like that. It's just what the media is going to say. This is going to be a widely covered game in the national media. And the result, I think, is going to be talked about all week long, right? So I think that's in the back of everybody's mind in this game. So Bills coming off a loss, big loss, and they're a great bounce-back team. Houston, really, they've shown a lot of flashes. I mean, Nico Collins is really, arriving as one of the better receivers in the league.
My favorite player. One of my favorite players in the NFL.
Yeah,
by far.
Great player.
I've been on him for years saying this guy's going to be legit, and he's proven me right. So,
but I mean, I don't know if Houston's the powerhouse. I mean, their roster, they're headed that direction, right? To be a consistent winner, powerhouse in the AFC. Through 4 weeks, I don't feel like they've really hit their peak yet. And I know that's expected because it's early in the season, but how are we feeling about this game?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with all the talk is going to be about Stephon Diggs returning to Buffalo. And although we know both Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs want to win this game just for, winning, just like they would any other game, but also so they can rub it in their friend's face a little, right? And their former, what did Stephon Diggs say, his ex-girlfriend or whatever? I don't have to talk bad about my ex-girlfriend to make the new one feel good. So, yeah, I mean, but Josh and Steph are just two super competitive guys who want to get the best of each other, right? So they're not physically on the field at the same time, but, I expect that Josh is going to have a big game, not just because it's the Texans, but because he's coming off of not great performance, not just by him, but the entire team. And he's the leader. He's the one who has to step up and do that. And the story of this game should be C.J. Stroud playing Josh Allen and the Buffalo defense for the first time. We have not seen that, and it's exciting, right? Like I do want to see how that goes because Josh Allen, being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, is going to do his thing. But Sean McDermott facing a quarterback for the first time tends to shut them down pretty good. So, I do want to see the defense and what they can do. And hopefully the other story of this game isn't even about this game. It's about the health off the field for the Buffalo Bills and who's actually going to be in it, right? So Terrell Bernard looking like he's going to play. I mean, he's gearing up that way. And obviously Taron Johnson, this is his 4th game miss. So if he doesn't play, it's going to be a situation that's eyebrow raising as to why they never put him on the IR, right? Like, okay,
right.
He's missed the 4 games. You could have put him on IR and brought him back and had a bonus roster spot. So it wouldn't make sense. So I expect that Taron Johnson is going to be ready to go too. And so you're getting your defensive stars back, 2 of them at least. Matt Milano obviously still out. He's going to be gone until December. But those other 2 guys are huge. You cannot understate the value of them coming back. And although that Texans offense has been able to do a lot, and you said it with Nico Collins, right? He's the superstar. Steph Diggs is the number 2 on this team. And I've been saying that all along. Everybody said last year, oh, Steph's going to be the number. No, Nico is the number 1. We talked about this in the offseason, and I said it on this show. Nico's the number 1. Diggs is the number 2. Diggs still needs to get attention, which will help Nico. They're not going to be able to double team him, and that's why we put up the numbers. Sure. But
they might have Joe Mixon back this week too, right? I know it's kind of iffy still, but
he's still been questionable, but maybe coming back for this game, yes. But I don't expect him to be that a game-changing player to me. Joe Mixon is not the game-changing player that I'm worried about, right? Especially on this team. Number 1, it's Nico Collins, and number 2 for me is Stephon Diggs. And with our cornerback duo, I love those matchups, right? I'm looking forward. One of the things I'm looking forward to in this game is seeing Nico Collins go up against Christian Benford, right? Like, what is going to happen there? Because something's got to give. Nico is the best deep ball, big yardage play guy right now in the NFL,
Oh, man.
and Benford hasn't given up a play over 15 yards. So,
Yeah.
and the question for me is, are they actually going to set it up that way, or is Rasul Douglas going to be on Nico? I don't like that as much. I think putting Douglas on Diggs makes sense, because if CJ Stroud starts to force the ball to Diggs, Rasul's the guy you want to, more likely to take the ball away, right? He's more known for that. And I think that situation is going to arise. I want to force CJ Stroud into making a mistake, throwing it to Diggs, because he's trying to force it to Diggs, knowing, even if it's not audibly said by Diggs, knowing mentally that that's what he wants is going to play a role in this game, I think, and should be, again, fun to watch. I expect Steph to catch passes. Diggs is still a great receiver in this league.
Yeah.
He might score a touchdown. He might get 50, 60
not
yards.
To mention, like, you want the matchup with Douglas or Benford. You'll probably get opportunities at both.
Yeah.
So really, if you're the Texans, you're attacking Cam Lewis, and that's if Taron Johnson doesn't play, right?
Right.
Taron Johnson coming off injury too. If he's playing, you might want to look at that as well as a
course. Yeah, and Diggs does line up in the slot, right? So if he lines up in the slot and goes up against Cam Lewis,
right? Huge
that
mismatch.
favors Diggs without a doubt.
Oh yeah, and not to mention, Taylor Rapp hasn't practiced, all
injured.
week, so you could have Cole Bishop in there, right, at safety. So I mean, that's obviously a place that they would attack as well. So I mean, there's just so many holes.
Yes, but I feel more comfortable with the safeties. To me, the safeties are more obsolete if we get, our starting middle linebacker and our starting nickel cornerback. We saw that through the first couple games. I thought that although we weren't confident in the safety tandem, they were able to do enough that, it didn't lead to huge plays, because the rest of the defense was really clicking and doing its thing. And that's really what I think the situation was. So even with Cole Bishop, if he ends up starting this game, that's not ideal in my mind. But as long as Terrell Bernard and Karen are back, it is.
I just feel like Diggs is going to cook these dudes, man. I really do. I mean, Benford's a lengthy corner, but as far as speed, I mean, not his strong suit, right?
Well, that's why I'm looking forward to that
tackler, but I mean, it's going to be a fun matchup. But I worry about the safeties. This feels like a bad matchup, because those receivers are really good. Bills always keep everything in front of them. If they tackle well, they'll be fine. But you got to get pressure on the quarterback. I think that's key to that. If you're not getting pressure on the quarterback, it's going to be a long day for that secondary. It just
you have to trust the cornerbacks for sure, and I do. So I'm confident in them. And Tank Dell, we didn't mention him, another weapon that the Texans have. He's no, passover. You can't just be like, oh, well, we want to force him to throw the ball to Tank Dell. No.
Mike Edwards should be active as well.
I am expecting. I've been surprised that he hasn't been yet. My guess is that it's just picking up the defense and the fact that he missed so much time in the preseason for adapting to, how things are done in this McDermott defense. Now I think it forces your hand. Even if he doesn't start, maybe Cole Bishop gets the start, and Edwards is active and comes in, spot plays or whatever. Kind of what I envisioned his role would be anyway to start the season. Not necessarily the starter, but out there making plays, being a guy that can play 50% of the snaps, but in key situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I'm curious to see what they do with Mike Edwards. I mean, this guy's played a lot of football on good teams, so curious to see how he contributes to the defense and how they use him. I think they're eager to play Cole Bishop. I think they like his upside, and the more experience he gets, the faster he's going to get, reach his potential. So I think that's definitely in the back of Sean McDermott's mind, Bobby Babbich's mind. But yeah, we didn't even talk about the Bills' offense. If you remember back in the offseason, I predicted this to be Josh Allen's best game all year.
Yeah.
Right? Because of the national media attention and the spotlight. And I think the last time the Bills played the Texans, what was that? Was playoff game, or did they play after that? Anyway, that playoff
in
game was
Texas. It
tons
was
of
a playoff game. Yeah,
tons of fun. Right, Josh was a really young player, but a really fun game to watch. So
he gave it up though. Yeah,
well, brings back memories. They have a nice stadium down there. I mean, I just feel like Josh's going to hit the zone. He knows what's on the line here as far as media attention, and I mean, it's his time to shine. And when we get Josh Allen in the spotlight, right, it's always been good. Whether it's a playoff game, whether it's prime time in a big game, it's always been good, right? When it matters. And I think in his mind, this one matters because Diggs is on the other side. Shakir, I know there's the questions with Shakir as well. Let's check it here. So Khalil Shakir did not practice
today.
Got an ankle. But we were arguing. We were on Sterling's show on the Buffalo. Was it the Buffalo Rumblings Network?
It's Rumblings Network.
Network. But you were making big arguments for Khalil Shakir, and there's actually by the numbers here. Ready? Khalil Shakir surpassed Michael Thomas for most consecutive targets caught by an NFL receiver since 1991.
Yes.
And that's 30 straight targets caught by Khalil Shakir. Michael Thomas was at 27, so he has 3 more than Michael Thomas.
Correct. It was huge. Yeah, and the guy just does everything you want him to do. Now he's injured, and that is a danger to this offense, right? You don't want to be down a wide receiver, especially just because you're limited in skill set from that position already. And what Shakir brings is important. His hands, right? Like he catches everything. So that we would definitely miss that in this offense. And even though he came back in the game with Baltimore after the injury, it looked like he was favoring it and he went out more. So I hope he's okay. I hope he's ready to play a full game. But if not, and he can't go, it's a question of who's going to step up. And to me, that starts with a guy we haven't seen yet in this offense and a guy that I've been clamoring for since the offseason, Curtis Samuel, right? Where is Curtis Samuel? Yes, he dealt with the turf toe. I'm hopeful that this could turn into one of his breakout games as well, because we really need the wide receivers, especially if Shakir is out, to step up. But, obviously we talked about on Sterling's show as well that Kincaid has been one of the most defended against guys in this offense, which means that other guys have to step up. So if Kincaid isn't able to do that, then it needs to be Samuel at all on the wide receiver core, and
yeah, I agree. And I mean, Keon's kind of a young player, but again, showing flashes, right? I think you can build off that, what he's done so far. But the other player I wanted to mention is Dawson Knox, right? It really hasn't been utilized in the passing game this year, right? I think there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Use both tight ends, cause some confusion in the middle of the field. Dawson Knox is a very capable receiving tight end, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So
and one that Josh trusts.
Utilize that. Exactly. So he's been kind of quiet here early. But real quick, and then we'll do a score, pick our score, and pick our team. But Ed Oliver, Jerry Hughes, Robert Woods, all, Ed Oliver's from Houston. Jerry Hughes, former Bill, Robert Woods, former Bill. It's not just Diggs over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, Ed Oliver returning home. So a lot of connections in this game as well.
Yeah,
what's
Texans defense we didn't talk much about, but they have not looked impressive with the guys they've had out there, right? Jacksonville, you gave up a big lead to Jacksonville. The Bills aren't going to let you come back from that if you give that up. So they look very vulnerable on defense. We know what their offense is capable of, obviously, but their defense is where I think they're vulnerable. And like you said, Josh Allen could have a pretty big game.
Yeah, that's the hope. What's your final score? Who are you picking? I think we know.
I think this is going to be a scoring game, high scoring. I'm taking the Bills to win 31-24.
31-24. Yeah, I'm right around there. I'm going to go 28-25. Bills win a close one. If it ends up being a score for score type game, I feel like the Texans are going to have an easier time scoring than the Bills will. The Bills are going to be slow, methodical drives, and I feel like the Texans do have some flash. So I just think Josh does one more than them.
I'm giving Diggs about 60 yards, and a touchdown. That's what I think he'll get.
Oh man, depends who plays, but man, he's gonna cook these dudes if Taron Johnson's not
Oh my
playing
God. Yeah.
and
Don't
Cole Bishop
speak that
starting,
into
even Mike
existence, Eric.
Edwards starting. It is gonna be a long day for the
Don't speak
secondary.
that into existence, Eric, because
Right.
if Taron Johnson doesn't play and we see a lot of Diggs in the slot, I would expect to see a lot of Diggs in the slot.
Oh man. Well, then you
That
got to
could
worry about
be
Nico
rough.
Collins. So like Diggs will have favorable matchups, right?
I don't even know how to counter that, right? What are you going to do? Put in a bigger guy to cover and maybe bully Diggs at the line? I mean, we've seen that kind of be effective at times against him, but yeah, I don't know. That's too much going on there. Too much to
Yeah.
question. Don't speak it into existence.
Ralph
Bass with the
Wilson,
winning kick.
right?
Woo! Let's go.
I'll take that too, but I was thinking more. Josh gets a touchdown late. 21-25. Josh gets a touchdown. 28-25. That's what I'm feeling. But Bass needs to hit a winning kick to get back on the wagon here. It just seems like his mental's been off, right?
Yes.
He needs an opportunity to gain some confidence. So I'd love that. All right,
Yes.
here we go. Let's finish out the rest of the slate here. Going to be a fun matchup for the Bills. Really looking forward to this one. But let's move on here. So Cleveland at the Commanders. Cleveland's +3, headed to Washington. What are you thinking about this?
Man, two teams going in the opposite directions, right? Cleveland not meeting expectations, really. Washington, one of the most, again, if it weren't for Minnesota, probably the surprise team in the league. And that's, just because Jaden Daniels is playing super efficient. I knew he was going to be a good quarterback in that sense. He's just had, made plays where he can and not made stupid ones right now. And he's looking like this year's version of last year's CJ Stroud, and bringing the team to win games. They're winning games because of his play. Like that's legitimate. And, how to maintain that now is the question, especially going against the Cleveland defense, right? This is a legitimate defense. Their offense has not been able to get going, right? We know that. And Deshaun Watson has been inconsistent at best, but terrible at times, like just outright terrible. So I'm picking Washington to win this game. And I think they do it by more than 3 points, but I think it's a lower scoring situation. So maybe like a 17-10 type game or something like that.
I want to pick Cleveland, but really it's Deshaun Watson that's holding me back here,
Yeah,
right? I mean, the most sacked quarterback in the league through 4 games, and that's kind of been his thing, right? He holds the ball way too long, right? And it's just not working out for him in Cleveland so far. Got to learn to be more efficient back there, right? It's extremely frustrating to watch because the Cleveland Browns they're a good team all the way around, but the quarterback just seems it's struggling all the time, right? It looks hard for him, right? When you watch Jaden Daniels, it's like, okay, this kid's getting it. It looks a little more easy, right? So, I mean, maybe the offense is simpler. The guy's a good athlete. He makes good decisions. I like Washington in this one as well, especially at home, right? That fan base has got to be pumped. So let's take Washington. All right, next one, Carolina at the Chicago Bears. Carolina +4 at Chicago. Do you think we see Bryce Young at any point, like through the remainder of the season?
No. I mean, I think that the statement they made was clear. Unless we see him traded to another team, then I don't think they say they want to have a vision with him moving forward, maybe in the future, next year or whatever. But in reality, I don't see that happening. Andy Dalton is playing better. I mean, that's all that comes down to, right? He's not a, sling it and explosive, like, wow, he came onto the scene and he's doing everything right. No, he had some boneheaded plays last week, and, he's not a starting caliber quarterback anymore. He's a quality backup, and he's doing pretty well right now, but can that be sustained? Who knows? But unless he gets injured, then I'm not expecting to see Bryce Young much at all for the Panthers anymore this year. And Chicago obviously came in on a high this season of expectations with Caleb Williams, and again haven't really lived up to it necessarily. But I think this is a game where they can get back on track with that, and maybe we do see Caleb Williams slinging the ball a little more, and getting more comfortable in that role because I think he's growing into it week by week. The comparisons, obviously the expectation was more of what we're seeing out of Jaden Daniels, but I think Caleb Williams takes the opportunity in front of him to make a good game against Carolina, and the Bears win by about a touchdown.
Yeah.
So give me the Bears -4.
Yeah, and Caleb doesn't really have to do a lot, right? They have a strong running game, good receivers, good on both sides of the line, and the defense, right? They're stacked as well. Bears undefeated at home. I think that continues. I'll take the Bears. All right, Raiders at Broncos. Raiders +2.5 at Denver. Lots of rumors about Devontae Adams out there. And really, for the Raiders, you just have to decide, are we building something or are we, going to go through a rebuild?
Well, we knew
right?
this offseason they tried to take that middle ground mode, and it was like, look, you either got to do one or the other, and that's never going to work out for you. So right now that's coming to bite them in the butt a bit with this Devontae Adams news that he wants to be traded and hurt his hamstring, so he won't be playing in this game. It's just a mess right now, and I think the Broncos, coming off their big win, are going to take advantage of yet another opponent who is reeling, and the Broncos are playing at home. So give me, Bo Nix and the 50 yards passing to win it again here with the strength of a defense and an offense that's good enough to beat an inferior opponent. The Raiders have much better weapons overall, but again, playing in Denver, divisional matchup, always going to be tough. I think the Broncos have the edge here.
Yeah, Broncos are a tough one, right? Because, they're winning games, but, Bo Nix had -7 yards passing in the first half last week. It's brutal. But again, like you said, you look at the Raiders, I just don't, nothing excites me outside of Max Crosby. I love Devontae Adams, but, they can't get him the football, it seems like. So, I'll take the Broncos at home. I just feel like there's a little bit of excitement when you have a rookie quarterback, as we know, being Bills fans. You just want to see the kid improve week by week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's in a great situation with his head coach. And I think there's a little excitement there. So I'll take the Broncos at home. All right, Cardinals at 49ers. Arizona +7.5 at San Francisco. This line seems high for me. Not sure how you feel.
It is a little high, but San Francisco, again, is a team that can do a lot. The Cardinals got beat by more than most people thought they would last week, certainly than by the line. And San Francisco started to look like the dominant team that we know they can be. And for that reason, I'm still taking the 49ers here. I think they can beat the Cardinals by at least 10 points. It's at home. Their defense and offense are getting on track. The Cardinals are still trying to find their footing. They appear to be just a mediocre team, which, again, is probably where most people thought they would be. And we've talked about 5 games in now, or the 5th game of the season, and we're starting to see who these teams really are. So, I think the 49ers are that good still. What they can produce on offense, even without CMC, even without some of the receivers, that offense is built to succeed. That defense is built to succeed. So they're going to get wins where they can, and this is definitely one where I think they can.
Yeah, second most passing yards in the league right now, San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy. Again, they're getting it done with, was it Jordan Mason, undrafted guy? Plug and play, feels like, with Kyle Shanahan. But I just feel like this Arizona team, they're a little bit scrappy this year, right? We saw it in Buffalo, right? They came out hot. They scored some points. They were scrappy all game. I feel like this 7.5 is just too high for a divisional matchup. I think the 49ers win, but the Cardinals cover. Give me 27-24 49ers. All right, Green Bay Packers at the LA Rams. Green Bay -3 at the Rams. If we look at the standings here, Packers are at the bottom of the division in the NFC North, and the Rams are at the bottom at 1-3 in the NFC West. So it feels like this game, is kind of important for these two teams because they're both competitive teams. It's not like they're trying to, tank or anything like that. They're trying to be competitive. We know the Rams have tons of injuries with receivers. We know the Packers and Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs a little banged up. Christian Watson banged up, but those are 3 key pieces for them. And Love will play, so I think that's a huge factor here as well. So
Right.
who are you taking?
Oh, this game, it's like you said, 2 teams that are reeling a little bit. I'm taking the Rams just because they're getting the points, and I don't trust either team, so I'll take the Rams with the 3 points. I think Green Bay finds a way to win, though, by a point. So maybe like 20-21 or 23-24, something along those lines. A really close game. Green Bay came out really flat against Minnesota, started to rally a comeback in garbage time where it got really close there for a minute. But I fully expect, this game's going to be, not quite at that pace. And like you said, both teams dealing with injuries. I actually think the Rams have the advantage there, and they're playing at home. But I think Green Bay comes out with a close fought win.
Yeah, I like Green Bay too. I just think Jordan Love's an absolute playmaker, right? I mean, everyone's beating him up last week because he started off really slow, had some interceptions, but the guy still had 4 touchdowns. I mean, he's a playmaker. I mean, those receivers, the young receiving core isn't that young anymore for Green Bay, with Romeo Dubes and Jalen Reed. They would love to have Christian Watson in this game, but I still think Green Bay has enough firepower to get it done. I just prefer Green Bay over the Rams at this point. Rams are real banged up, and no Aaron Donald, just feels a little deflated for the Rams. All right. Got 3 more here. The Giants at the Seahawks. Giants plus 6.5 at Seattle. And Seattle's the number 1 team in passing yards through 4 weeks, which is surprising.
Seattle playing very well, but again, why are they the leader in passing? Because a few of their games have come down to close calls right at the end, and they've stayed in it.
And their stud running back was hurt for a while. I think that
exactly right. So, Charbonnet's no overlook, but yes, I mean, they have a good run offense as well. But their passing game, how I feel about the Seahawks. They have excellent weapons on offense, and Geno Smith is good enough to get them the ball, right? So I have confidence in them that way. I think it's more impressive that their defense has been playing well, given that, I probably can't name a lot of their starters, right? So they're playing the Giants, who clearly are struggling to find their way right now. The Giants have to go to Seattle, which is always, always, always tough. I like Seattle to win this game by more than a touchdown.
Yeah, I like Seattle too. I mean, you just look at this Giants roster, and I don't know, who do you turn to on offense?
Neighbors
right?
is banged up, right? So,
and this will be, this is the toughest matchup for Neighbors, right? These cornerbacks in Seattle are arguably the best in the league, this tandem, right? So again, it's going to be a long day for the Giants. They do have a really good defensive line. They could give Geno Smith some problems, but again, there's just, with Kenny Walker back, there's a lot of different options for Seattle, and I just don't see that for the Giants. So, yeah, I agree with you. I'm taking Seattle by a touchdown or more. All right, 2 more. We have the Dallas Cowboys at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dallas plus 2.5 at Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I actually like Dallas here because, Dallas's defense has been inconsistent, to say the least. Micah Parsons a little banged up. But I think this is a situation where the Steelers offense faces a defense that matches up better against them than what they've seen so far. So I think that this is where the rubber meets the road for both Dallas's defense and Steelers offense to look like who we thought they were, and vice versa. Dallas's offense certainly not blowing people away, but can get it done. Steelers defense is what we thought they were, very good. So give me a low-scoring affair, but I think Dallas pulls it out in the end. So I like Dallas with the points here.
Yeah, I like Dallas as well. It's just Justin Fields, great playmaker with his legs, and that'll work a lot of times. I just don't think that works with this defensive line for Dallas, right? They're going to set the edge. They have guys that are fast enough. They've been a super fast defense on the defensive line in particular. It's going to be a tough day for Justin Fields if he doesn't throw the ball as much. He typically he's not a top tier passer, right? So it feels like he struggles when he passes the ball, but those legs he's a playmaker for real. But I like Dallas in this one. All right, Monday Night Football. New Orleans Saints at the Kansas City Chiefs. New Orleans plus 5.5 at Kansas City. Big question with Kansas City is who's the receiver now, right? Is it Juju Smith-Schuster? Xavier Worthy? I mean,
Somebody's got to step up. Yeah, with the
Kelsey?
Rice injury.
Right.
I do think, for me, what stands out here is the line is plus 5.5. If it were closer to 3, I think that'd be right, for the questions given the Chiefs offense. The Saints have been able to play well and score points. We've seen them click. Now, the Kansas City defense is probably the best they're going to face, and that's the best they've faced yet, and that could limit them on offense. But the Chiefs offense also has its question marks against a very, what I would call, they take the opportunity in front of them. Advantageous? No, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, they take advantage of what's in front of them defense in the New Orleans Saints. And I think that's what they're going to do here. I expect Kansas City to win, but they have not been winning dominantly at all this season. So I expect Kansas City to win at home, but the Saints to put up a pretty good fight. So I'll take the Saints with the 5.5 points, but Kansas City to win by 3.
Yeah, and I think the Saints have been playing pretty balanced football, flashy at times, right? They seem like a pretty good team this year. And with Pat Mahomes, he's got 5 interceptions on the year. There's only 2 players with more interceptions, and that's Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. So I think if New Orleans can get a few turnovers here, they have a real chance to win this game.
Mahomes is a turnover machine, man. All you got to do is stand there. He'll throw it to you.
But can they win by 5? That's where I have questions, right?
Yeah. 4, maybe, again, that would be close, 20-24 or something like that. I could see.
Right. So, yeah, give me Saints to win, but they don't cover, so I would take Kansas City. 27-24.
Saints are getting points. You mean Kansas City to win, but not cover.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Saints with the points, but Kansas City to win.
Correct.
Same as me. Yeah. Seems pretty straightforward. I like it.
All right. Yeah. Any last thoughts? Looking forward to week 5.
Yes. Something we haven't discussed that I need to put on the airwaves again, right? Von Miller's suspension, 4 games. We talked about this on the show at length, right? I said multiple times in the offseason, he's likely going to be suspended for a couple games. I thought it would be 2. It ends up being 4. They make up whatever number they want. There's nothing you can do about it. It's 4 games, right?
Apparently timing doesn't matter either.
The point being that I wanted to make, I said this over and over again when they reworked Von's contract. There is no such thing as taking a team-friendly contract rework, right? Von Miller did not agree to that. Von Miller was strong-armed into that, okay? The Bills came to him and said, look, you're going to get suspended. You're going to lose money if you get suspended. We need cap money. So here's our idea. We're going to rework your contract so you only lose this much money when you're suspended. And instead, you're going to give us $10 million in cap space or whatever. So Von had no choice. Von's people had no choice. There's no volunteering to take money away, right? No player goes and says, and again, people all posted this. The Bills talking heads all said this. Every podcast I heard said this. And I kept arguing the same point over and over again then. No, there is no player taking a team-friendly deal. There's no such thing as that. It was a business decision forced upon Von Miller and his team by the Buffalo Bills. Now, did it work in Von's favor? A little bit, yeah, because, he was going to lose money either way, right? He would have lost bigger checks because his game check was bigger versus the bonus and the way the contract was reworked. But, everybody was like, well, now he bet on himself because he can get more in incentives. No, that was never going to happen anyway. So we knew what this was. I knew what this was back then. And now it's just proven and set in solid stone now that we see this suspension come down. The Bills and Von probably knew this was going to happen, and they worked it out. And Von, although he said, yes, I'll take it, rather than being outright cut, that, and again, it benefited him in some ways.
Right.
He did not take a team-friendly deal. He did not, agree to rework his contract. It was a business decision.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Well said. I mean, that's definitely reading between the lines. there's a lot of foresight out there, right? Look, the Bills got the facts, right? They know
Yeah.
the police report. I'm sure they talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
We'll leave that where it is. But like from a NFL business standpoint, it's the best case scenario for the Bills, right? You create a little cap room. You're going to lose. You probably didn't know it was 4 games, but you knew there's going to be a suspension, I would assume. And that's just where we are now. So, yeah, hate to see it. Von's had a great career, but this is just, it's very disappointing, I would say, for a player like that.
Sure. And he's been playing decent, but again, not playing a lot of snaps. I don't know
Right.
that they're necessarily going to feel the impact of missing Von Miller for these 4 games, but it's impactful on the team
Sure.
mentally.
Well, I guess
and
what I don't understand in the NFL is like, did they just finish their investigation? Is that why you suspend them now for 4
they do
games?
what they want.
I would think it would be games 1 through 4 and not 4 through 8.
They do what they want.
Right.
Which is just
they
picked a random number, they picked a random day, and they did
right.
it. And they don't have to give answers, right? So it's just
no
this
notes.
is when they did it.
Yeah.
Just like
doing
the
this,
Rashee Rice
no
situation, we all know there's a suspension coming, and it's probably going to be a significant one for what we all saw with our own eyes, right? Like, on recordings and various pictures and all that from the scene. The NFL takes their time, does what they want. When they've reached their decision, they tell you. That's it.
Right.
And a lot of that could be evidence gathering, but nothing changed in this case. So, I mean, it took them a year.
Right. I'll get to it when we get to it,
Yeah.
Anyway, well, we hope Von comes back for the playoffs and plays well, but I got to think it's Von on his way out of Buffalo, right?
Yes. I mean, we knew the general contract was you could terminate it after this season. Really, it was a $60 million 3-year contract guaranteed, even though the number was 120 in 6 years, at signing. I want Von to succeed and be on this team and have impact in the playoffs, like you said, when it matters, and win a Super Bowl and be the first player to win 3 Super Bowls with 3 different teams. So, I would love that to happen, and we want that to happen here in Buffalo, and we want the best for him. But he is where he's at now, and I don't think it's, like I said, on the field, this team is going to be ready. I don't think it changes anything game plan wise. It does give my guy Javon Solomon a chance, I think, to make a play. So we'll see if he gets those 9 snaps that other guys aren't getting now because Von's out.
Yeah, I'm just doing a quick search for top NFL draft edge players. Right, I think that's that's where we're headed. How about James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee? Right, we'll start there. I'll start watching him.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be a big draft need for the Bills this offseason.
Certainly,
so
Root's a free agent.
Right?
AJ Epinesa the only other guy.
Could be a lot of turnover there, right? Yeah. We'll see what Groot gets. I mean, it's a contract year for him, right? So
yes,
so you expect him to reach the potential this year, right? And he's had a great start, so
he's had a good start, but he's not earning top defensive edge rusher quality money. So I think that works in the Bills' favor right now in terms of negotiating.
Sign him for a decent price.
Yeah.
Will he get top dollar in the market? Hard to tell.
I mean, top dollar these days is ridiculous. So
the
Bills won't sign him for that. That's for sure.
No. So Mason Graham, Michigan, defensive lineman. Yeah.
That's another name.
Start watching college football. So.
Yes.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in with us tonight. Enjoy the games and go Bills.
Go Bills, baby.